Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this man back. Friend of mine, Marc Lotter, the Chief Communications Officer, America First Policy Institute. Marc, it's good to see you again. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you?
I'm living the dream. We're watching Kamala Harris, so exhausted she had to take a day off yesterday. And it was funny because Trump literally on the campaign trail said, I was going to hit her today, but she took the day off. I guess I can't. He said 2 weeks before the election, I can't believe that. That side, when you bring out Obama and the big guns to start lying about his record compared to Trump's record, and then you've got Kamala Harris who needed a day off just to sort of regroup. I mean, they're in shambles right now, I believe. I want everybody to go and vote. I'm not saying that this is in the bag for Trump at all. But as somebody who's been in politics a long time and been on actual campaigns for a long time, what do you see here?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the 2016 and the 2020 Trump campaigns, and I'll tell you right now, without a question, Donald Trump is polling better right now than he was in either of those two races, including the one where he won outright on election night.
Right.
And she is so far behind. I mean, it's all about math to me. And so when she's losing 10% of the black vote, losing 20% of the Hispanic vote, union vote, young people doubling the vote, all going for Donald Trump, the math doesn't work. I think they know it, and that's why they've panicked.
AmericaFirstPolicy.com. Go there and check out what Marc and the good folks there do. When she walked out today, I think she was at the vice president's quarters. She walks out, and with the vice president's seal in front of her, she's allowed because president and vice president aren't affected by Hatch Act, but it looked really weird already. She said it was going to be a press conference. You and I both know what a press conference is. You say some words, and the press gets to ask you a bunch of questions. There's a back and forth. None of that happened. She walked out for 3 minutes plus and talked about how General Kelly has decided Donald Trump wants the military to be his own loyal military and wants to be a fascist and basically is Hitler incarnate. I mean, again, that just smells like desperation, right?
No, it's absolutely desperation, and it's also complete and utter BS. I mean, General Kelly can talk about whatever he wants, but Mark Esper, who is no fan of Donald Trump, says he's never heard Donald Trump use the kind of words that General Kelly said. And when you look at it, more than 200 retired generals and admirals support Donald Trump. I was in the White House in 2017, on the campaign in 16, on the campaign in 20. I've never heard Donald Trump mention anything like that. And what they can't overcome is that there were no new wars under Donald Trump.
Right.
Putin wasn't invading. Israel wasn't being attacked. Kim Jong-un was back in his place. And none of those things are true under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And so when it comes to national security and who makes the world safer, it ain't them, it's Donald Trump.
It is Marc Lotter. We appreciate you coming on, Marc. So when we watch the campaign up till now, I will give her this. I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris, but she was thrust into this about 70 days before the election. I think Donald Trump made one huge mistake this year. He's still going to win, in my opinion. I hope so. But the huge mistake was doing a debate in June. When you do the debate in June, you help the Democrats pick who their nominee was going to be. Joe Biden, I think, right now would be polling better than Kamala Harris, but she hasn't had a whole lot of time. All that aside, she loses on every single policy. When somebody says, I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris, and I say, why? They don't know. They honestly don't know. Has she done a really poor job of representing what her policies should be, or is she just not quick enough to change where she was, which is radical policies nobody wanted in 19, to where they're telling her that she has to be to win the election? What are we seeing here? Because no policies are being talked about at all.
Well, it's because she doesn't have any. I mean, the policies she ran on in 2019 are her policies. She even said her values have not changed. When she was asked multiple times now, what would you do differently than what Joe Biden did? She can't come up with a single thing. So radical policies when she ran on her own, failure when she was, the last person in the room with Joe Biden.
Right.
And so she can't articulate what she wants to do in the future because it's a losing record. And so she has to just try to distract you with joy and vibes.
No joy and vibes.
She's given up on that. And it's just
right.
The only reason why you should vote for me is I'm running for president and I'm not Donald Trump.
Right. And she also the other day said, I'm not Joe Biden. Then she said, I'm not an extension of Joe Biden. And then Biden the next day said, no, she was involved in every decision I made. Marc, if I'm somebody who doesn't do what you and I do for a living, and I'm out there driving a truck or taking the kids to soccer practice or flipping the burgers or whatever I'm doing, and I'm hearing this nonsense, what is a voter to make of the current president saying she's been my right hand and has had the authority to do everything that I've done, at the same time she says, don't blame me, I'm not Biden?
Well, I mean, you actually know. So one of them is lying, and we know who's lying because for three
Right.
and a half years, she said she was the last person in the room. She went out and told us Joe Biden was okay. She supported the Afghanistan withdrawal. She was the border czar. She said multiple times Bidenomics is working until it became inconvenient. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, after telling us that it was just a bad debate, Joe Biden's fine. Oh, wait, no, now I'm running for president. And she can't tell you why. And look, I get it. If you don't love the way Donald Trump tweets or the way he talks about people, fine, I get it. Some people don't. A lot of
Yeah.
people do.
Right.
But you know this to be true. Stuff was cheaper. The border was more secure. The world wasn't at war. And really, isn't that what we are talking about in terms of what we want from our president?
Well, that's exactly what we want. We want somebody to just do the job. If they were both robots and we didn't see the personalities or their ancestry, this would be about 90% to 10% right now. But a lot of these divisive policies are being played with, like ancestry, like background, like gender, like who the guy has been and how many times he's been married or whatever. But when you have Obama show up and he literally looks at the crowd and says, "Can you believe how divided we are?" Mark, you and I lived through Obama. He did it. Wasn't it him?
Absolutely. I mean, let's not forget that it was then Vice President Joe Biden in 2012 that told black people that Mitt Romney wanted to put them back in chains.
Yes.
It was Barack Obama who said that, basically conservatives cling to their religion and their guns and their Bible.
Right.
Hillary Clinton thought we were deplorables. They've not run on a pro policy for what, more than a decade. It is just anti-conservatives, and then recently anti-Donald Trump. It's not going to work anymore because people, one thing they forget is that Donald Trump has a record. He's not hypothetical. And we know that we had a better economy, a better border, a safer world, support for the police when he was in office, the exact opposite of what they have now, and they can't get out of their own way.
It's our friend Marc Lotter, the Chief Communications Officer, America First Policy Institute. Go to americafirstpolicy.com. The Obama and Harris and Biden campaign want us to believe that abortion's the biggest deal. It's not. That is not the most important issue for anybody unless they're disconnected completely from the economy. It's either got to be the economy, it's got to be the border, it's got to be averting World War III. I think those are way more important than the one issue that basically Trump just had a court that was sitting on a decision that was a bad one for 50 years and said it should go back to the states because abortion isn't in the Constitution. So let's talk about the border specifically. She failed as the so-called border czar. It was a moniker she wore, I think, proudly for 3 years. Never went to the border until a few weeks ago, where she walked around with a couple of higher-ups. The frontline people didn't want to be seen with her. Many of them have announced if she becomes president, they'll quit. Mark, the Border Patrol's going to quit if she becomes the president. What do you make of them trying their best to hide what I think is her biggest if she had anything to do with anything for the 3.5 years, her biggest failure is the border.
Absolutely. I mean, we cannot forget that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took 94 executive actions in the first 100 days to undo all the border security that Donald Trump put in place. Let's also not forget that just yesterday, in an interview, I think it was with Telemundo, she basically admitted that she plans no deportations and she backs amnesty. That's who she is. She's saying the quiet part out loud. And so there was a reason why she did this. They let all these 12 million illegals in because they eventually want to give them the right to vote, and so they can never lose an election again. We believe in immigration. We believe in legal immigration. Yeah. And we do believe, Donald Trump was very clear in his first term, that we need to reform our immigration system. But we've got to secure the border first. And then let's talk about building a system that better works for our economy, for Americans and American businesses, so everyone who wants to be here, wants to be a proud American, can actually get here through the legal channels.
To reiterate what you just said, and you said it very well, but for those watching and listening, some say 12 million, some say 20 million. Either way, she hasn't wavered. Her values are the same. She would like to make everybody a citizen who came here illegally. They broke the law to come here. They broke the law to be here. Many of them broke the law or are breaking the law to work here. She wants them to compete with Americans for jobs, get in-state tuition, get free housing, get free schooling, get free shelter, whatever it is they want. She wants to give it to them. That's really the difference here. So again, as you said, forget the mean tweets, forget how he wears his suit, forget that he's not afraid to say something directly to somebody, forget about ancestry. She wants 20 million, maybe 12, whatever the real number is, people who broke the law to come here to get full amnesty and get full rights as an American citizen. That can't be overstated, can it?
No, and don't forget, she wants to give them free transgender surgeries, as she also does for inmates. I mean, this is just radical nonsense. And so you have to ask yourself, were we better off when we had Donald Trump in office? And the answer is clearly yes. We can get the criminals out of here. There are terrorists. We know that terrorists have crossed our border. They're arresting them right now. They're catching them. We don't know what they have planned. But of those 12 million, that we've got the 300,000 who are convicted felons, who are still roaming freely here, including 13,000 murderers, I think 15,000 or so convicted of sex crimes, and she won't even deport them.
Right. And actually, the House of Representatives, the Democrats, would not agree to a bill that would deport people who were convicted of drunk driving. So, I mean, they're not deporting anybody. They don't want to get rid of anybody. If you're here, you're here. And she's made it clear. And by the way, she doesn't want them to become citizens to have a better life and a better path for their families. She wants them to become citizens so they can vote. That's really what it is. It's about keeping power, never giving power up. When we talk about the border, what you said is so true. The policies were changed by executive action. Why does she keep pretending we need legislation to fix it? Just go back to the Trump policies, no?
Well, absolutely. But that way she could try to blame Donald Trump, because her answer to everything is Donald Trump. I mean, literally, her campaign is a new way forward and turning the page. Of course, she wrote that page. She wrote that book with Joe Biden. But when you call her on it, she's like, no, I want to turn the page from Donald Trump. We're like, well, you've been in office for the past 3.5 years.
She's on the page. Mark, she's on the page.
You wrote the page. So, I mean, you literally just can't make this up. But that's really what this entire thing is about. And they did those actions. That bill that they talk about was garbage. We opposed it at the America First Policy Institute before Donald Trump did. Speaker Johnson said it was dead on arrival because it allowed 2 million more illegal immigrants in a year. It was creating a pathway to amnesty. It was garbage. And she's using it as a talking point. Why don't you go back to H.R. 2 that was passed a year prior to the bipartisan bill?
Right.
The House passed it, Senate wouldn't take it up. That actually reinstated Trump policies and would have gotten tough on the border, but Senate Democrats in the White House wouldn't get on board with it.
Thank you for bringing up H.R. 2. I talk about it constantly on my show. It really would codify everything that Trump did that worked into law. And that was something that was May of 23. Here we are in October of 24. She's still complaining that Trump somehow forced the border to be open. They opened it. It was closed the day he left. What's really rich is that they claim the border crossing numbers are lower now than they were when Trump left office. That's verifiably untrue, but they've changed the status. Now these NGOs are making people legal who are seeking asylum or parole or whatever through the CBP One app. They're pretending that they're not illegal crossings. That's how they're jockeying with the numbers, right?
Absolutely. And think about it, it's not just with this. I mean, they lied to us about the jobs numbers, 800,000 jobs that were supposedly created that, oh, wait, oops, no, they weren't.
Right.
They lied to us about the crime stats. When they got the headline that they wanted that said crime is down, oops, the FBI comes out a month or two later and goes, yeah, actually, it's not. And now they're basically playing a shell game by moving the illegal immigrants out of one column where they're illegal into another column through the CBP One app. But they're still here with no status, no ability to remain.
Right.
And even the ones that they give temporary status to, the key word is temporary. You're not meant to be here permanently. It's temporary protective status, but they're hiding behind it to try to make the numbers and cook the books until the election.
And it's why stay in Mexico is so effective, right? You literally could not come into the country until you're going to be adjudicated on that asylum claim. And by the way, over 90% who claim asylum are turned away. They don't get asylum. So once they're here, they've got also all these civil rights. Now they've got all this due process. If you're in Mexico, you don't have all of that. That's why the flow was stopped. Let me ask you this. Should President Trump win again, and I pray he does, can he shut off the spigot, or can the House shut off the spigot of money, taxpayer money, to NGOs that are not doing things that are in the interest of the United States?
Well, you definitely can, and you can take a look at it either between Congress or through DHS in terms of how they give these grants. But ultimately, what we have to do is get back to that tough policy where you don't get to come in here get dumped off in the middle of America with a prepaid debit card, free housing, free healthcare, free sex changes, free education, whatever you want. And maybe in 3 or 4 years, if you bother to show up for your court hearing, we'll let you know if you get to stay. That's done. You're going to wait either in your home country or a safe third country or Mexico until a judge can determine whether you have a right to be here. And guess what? They will stop coming here. We saw that happen. And then we've got to go on the backside and make sure we get the criminals, the terrorists, and those who have already gone through the process and been ordered removed. There's millions of people who have been already gone through the process. Judge has determined they don't get to stay. Appeals court has said, nope, you don't get to stay. You've got what's called a final order of removal.
Yeah.
And yet they're not removing them.
Of course they're not, because they want a path to citizenship. It's Marc Lotter, Chief Communications Officer, America First Policy Institute. Go to americafirstpolicy.com. What blows my mind is that people don't seem to understand what asylum really is. Asylum is you are getting away because you're afraid for your life. You're being persecuted for your religious beliefs, whatever. And then you get to the next country that is a safe country. Mexico is a democracy, I thought. Mexico is a safe country, I thought. Mexico is the first country. Yet, for some reason, they think they get a pathway to the United States. Am I wrong that if you get to Brazil or fill-in-the-blank country that is a semblance of a free country and you're now safe, you and your family are safe, that you should stop there? Why do they have the right to come here?
Well, they don't. And legally, it's not even what is supposed to be done. I mean, take this out of Central America or even South America and put it into a European country that's being ravaged by civil war.
Right.
People would go to the nearest safe country to seek asylum. They would be refugees with the hope that once the war is resolved, once you are safe again, you can go back home and help rebuild your country.
Right.
That's why we have asylum laws, and why when we have these horrible situations, say in Africa or in the parts of the Middle East or parts of Europe, we want you to stay as close to home as you can and be safe.
Right.
So you can go home and rebuild your home country. These people are not seeking asylum. They're not being persecuted because of their religious beliefs by the government. And if there is a state of lawlessness, then stay at the safe country next door.
Right.
And once it's resolved, go back home and help rebuild your country into a great nation again. If you want to come to the United States and you can offer something, then go through the legal process and come here. If you qualify, we would love to have you.
100%. It's Marc Lotter, Chief Communications Officer, America First Policy Institute. Go to americafirstpolicy.com. Follow him everywhere as well. Marc, thanks for making the time. Let's do it again soon.
Absolutely, Joe. See you in a couple of weeks.
All right, brother. We're back after this. Stay right here.